Hey guys and girls, this is Alish from GainMediaLab.com. Welcome to my exciting world of live audio mixing. One of the most common questions I get during the private lessons in my Gorilla Mixing course is, which is the best console? Or which console should I buy? So, let's talk about that. Let's go. Let's start by making one thing clear. I really can't answer that, because there's no one definite answer to this question. Different consoles are made with different applications in mind, each one covering a specific segment of the audio industry. Broadcast has completely different demands than musical theatre, which is quite removed from a classical concert application. Even within one manufacturer's product line, you can find items that are more suitable for one segment due to specific functionalities, either on the software side or on the actual hardware itself. But there are considerations to keep in mind when deciding which console you will use for a job at hand, provided you have more than one option available to you. The number one trait I look for in a console is reliability. Digital mixing consoles are computers with fancy interfaces, and as such, they will eventually break down or show signs of developing their own personality, usually right before a show. There's a number of adversities they must endure: load-ins, transportation, rapid changes in temperatures and humidity, dust, power surges, accidental liquid spills, and most frightening of all, inexperienced users. It's a small miracle that they withstand all of the cruel conditions we tend to expose them to. Not only that, but they have to interface with stage box units, other consoles, networks, and remote access, which are all potential points of failure. Some manufacturers design their systems with robustness in mind. It doesn't matter in what order the devices are plugged in or turned on, they will just work. Others might be very demanding on the operator to follow a specific order of operations to get the system going. And you have to figure out on your own what their quirks are. You can't operate a summer festival show in the August heat if you know that your system components might not work after being exposed to the sun for that long. For me, the number one mark of a great console is its reliability during the most demanding conditions. It is more important than the sound, the user interface, the network protocol. I just need to have a system that will give me the best chance of successfully finishing the show. The second most important consideration for me is sufficient I/O and the console's footprint. You can have your favorite console at your disposal, but if it doesn't meet all of your I/O demands, then it's not right for the job. Consider all of your input and output needs and choose a console that can meet them and leave a bit of wiggle room. Even for touring events where you are working with the same artist for a longer period of time, somewhere down the line there might be a demand to have a special guest star appearance or a recording session of a live show. If your console does not allow for that, well, you will either have to find a new console, reprogram the entire show and burden the production with additional cost, or tell them it can't be done. A sentence that could potentially mean you will be looking for a new employer. However, it also works in the opposite direction. Overkill is just as bad. If you are certain that you have a performer that has no more than 24 inputs and you can do any version of that show with 32 inputs, try not to bring a large format console for that job. Considering your system's footprint can score huge points with the production or management team, organizers, smaller venues, and so on. Remember, every sold seat in the house counts. If you can make a decision that will sell 2 more tickets every show because you reduce the physical real estate of the front of house world, you should do that. Those sold seats can be your paycheck. The following most important consideration for me is the user interface, and with that, the speed of operation. The fastest digital console interface for any operator is the one you are most familiar with. If you have worked on a console for a while and feel confident in where things are laid out, then your speed and accuracy will increase. You might argue that knowing different consoles is our job. That is true, but you can't become intimately familiar with all functions, shortcuts, tips and tricks if you are switching consoles on a daily basis. I will definitely do my homework, but the majority of the work has to be done by clever user interface layout that allows me to be a sound engineer, not only a console operator. And that is definitely a major factor that determines which console I might use. The better the graphical user interface, the faster my operation, the more points a console gets in my book. And finally, the topic that sound engineers love to discuss the most: how a console sounds. I agree, different consoles sound differently. The preamp construction, the quality of conversion, the internal effects units, the EQ curves and shapes, types of compression, and analog gear emulation, all these factors will decide how a console sounds. On this topic, I am sporting a very unpopular opinion. To me, it doesn't really matter that much. Coming from concert touring sound, I truly believe that when you consider the sound of the venue, the sound of the PA system, the microphones used, and the most important thing, the act on stage, the console's contribution to the overall sound is a very small percentage number, probably less than 10%. In the grand scheme of things, I would much rather be using a reliable console with the proper channel processing ability that does not have my favorite sound than the best sounding console that will make me anxious on every show, not knowing if I will have enough channels or if I will spend most of my prep time hunting down why the system is not working. That doesn't mean that we should totally abandon the conversation on how consoles sound, since I love participating in them myself. Let's just do it with a bit of perspective, and most of all, respect for other people's opinions. Ultimately, your personal choice for the best console out there will not be influenced just by these factors, but also by how familiar you are with a certain brand, the post-sale support that you can get, and the personal relationships you have developed with dealers and sales reps. Do you agree with my list? Let me know in the comments below what is your number one deciding factor when selecting a console. While you're doing that, you can also like the video, subscribe to the channel, and visit GameMediaLab.com for more delicious content. Mix great shows and take care. Bye.